Well, I guess it's appropriate that I'm wearing a Giants hoodie right now. It's about 47 degrees. It's a little after 7. And mainly and you can tell that by the rooster. And mainly the reason I'm out early is because I had to deposit $10 into my Wells Fargo to basically make sure I have something in there for the annual fee. If you know what I'm saying. Making sure that, of course, depending on if there's no other fees I have to pay or the bills I have to pay today, I got the 10 in there to cover that. So instead of like $6.69, I have $16 now. Maybe I should have asked for 20, but I don't want to push my luck, But yeah, hopefully I don't got another bills to look at. I have to double check and make sure. Yeah, that should basically cover what I need to have covered today. Basically the $10 fee, I hope. But anyway, though, that's not what I'm here to talk about. What I'm here to talk about is last night's ending to Game 5 of the Dodgers-Giants NLDS. And it's something that obviously a lot of people are going to be talking about due to the fact that, well, the way it ended was not very well. I mean, hold on for a second. Like I said, the way it ended was not very well because it seemed kind of odd, because even the commentators, after they saw the replay, are like, oh crap, they screwed the pooch on that call. And that was basically the check swing. And it was like, what the hey? And my mom, who's learning as much as she can, as best as she can, basically what baseball is, really about. I mean, she knows her stuff, don't get me wrong, but not entirely because, she's never been that much of a sports infinito, if you will, sports fanatic, let's put it that way. She's never been, someone that, basically will, watch sports 24 hours for a living, if you know what I mean. And even she can see that, the guy didn't swing, that the check swing that they called for a strike was wrong. It was controversial. And obviously, like I said, everybody, from the grandpas, the grandmas, the aunts, the uncles, the in-laws, the distant relatives, anybody could see that. And social media, mostly Twitter, was blowing up with this. It was blowing up with this because they're like, are you serious? Even a blind person, and I say that with all due respect, no offense, that even a blind person could see that was not a swing. That was not a strike. That was not a check swing. That was a ball. That the game should have continued. Even if the same outcome came to be, like, even if, even if the Giants batter, I can't think of his name right now, struck out regularly or, flied out normally, yeah, we'd probably get the same result, but still, it's like, how can you end what many on both sides of the fence would consider a classic game, a classic rivalry, increase to the upteenth degree, if you will, was it now being part of the playoffs and being down and being the only divisional series game, this year to, result in a Game 5. And the only divisional series, if any playoff game in recent memory, to have teams whose basically combined record, in a sense, for the season. Hold on for a sec. Like I said, whose combined record for the season, not in total, but basically was amounted to, according to what they said, about 109 wins. But not a combine of, wins each or anything like that, but basically a combination of, here you had the Giants at 107. Here you had the Giants at 107, and the Dodgers like at 106, 105, whatever the case may be. And basically in total, if you will, 109, 112, whatever you want to call it, or whatever, however they looked at it, the fact of the matter is this. Everybody agrees that you took a classic game, if you will. Hold on for a sec. As I was saying, basically everybody, from the commentators and everyone, were like, that was a blown call. Because, as I was saying, everybody from the grandmothers to the aunts, the uncles, the cousins, the brothers, the sisters, the distant relatives, anybody, could see that was a missed call. That was a blown call. Now, what's interesting, though, is on social media, mostly like Twitter, and I think other parts of Facebook and Instagram and all that, some people basically came out and said that the guy that was the first base umpire, who they checked with to see whether or not they swung or they didn't, to see whether or not it was a ball or a strike, basically he was a 37-year-old. 37 years old. Younger than me by 5 years. Yeah, younger than me by 5 years. Now, I know that shouldn't be an issue, what have you. That shouldn't be an issue, whatsoever. But apparently it is. Apparently it is an issue. Because of the fact that he should have known better. I mean, you go to umpiring, umpire school or whatever, and you go there to train and to learn how to make sure you make the right calls. And it looked like throughout that game, they were doing all right. I mean, yeah, there were some calls against the Dodgers and at times the Giants, if you will, that seemed like they should have been otherwise. But most of the calls, at home plate and when they would check at first or third would be fine. It wouldn't be until that last out when they checked to see if the Giants batter swung or not, it wasn't until that last call that basically what seemed to be a classic game, which in all honest opinion should have continued for at least a couple more pitches, was ended in controversy. It was ended in controversy. And what makes this even more troublesome is this again becomes another issue for the MLB. And they have to address this. The commissioner, Roger Goodell, I think that's his name, he needs to address this. His team needs to address this once and for all, because it doesn't make them overall, not just the umpires they hire on and train to umpire all these MLB games and all these MILB games. It doesn't just make them look bad, but it makes the sport look bad. And it makes the fans and the players, mostly the players, untrustworthy of whether or not they feel that the umpires are going to be, unbiased and non-objective, if you will. And, here's the thing. One can excuse, if you will, a blown call during a regular season game. Especially, let's say, if it's during the early portions or even before the end of the first half. Or even potentially during the All-Star game, which does have significance. But the thing is, that's the regular season, and to an extent, that's the All-Star game. That's different from the playoffs. That's different from the playoffs. I mean, again, the All-Star game, to an extent, is important as well because the winning league gets home field advantage during the World Series. In other words, they host games 1 and 2 and 6 and 7. And that's it. Well, the other teams, host games 3, 4, and 5. And that's all. The point that I'm getting at is, even with the All-Star game and home field advantage of the World Series being on the line, along with the regular season midway, towards the end of the first half, early portions, whatever, even spring training, these can be excusable. But when you get later on in the season and playoff implications are on the line, that's when the umpire crew, no matter who they are, no matter how much experience they have, no matter how old they are, that's when the umpiring crews need to be unbiased. They need to be non-objective. And most of all, they need to make sure they are trained well enough that they basically put in the extra hours of training to make sure that when they are assigned divisional, wild card, and championship series and World Series games, that they don't make mistakes. That they do what they can to give the correct calls at nearly 100%. That is what they need to do. They cannot make the mistakes they make during spring training, the early portion, first half of the season, or to an extent during the All-Star game. Because those are still learning periods. Those are still, OJTs, on-the-job trainings for them. Especially spring training. So, so that basically when they get to this part of the season and they get into the postseason, they won't make mistakes that they made earlier on in the regular season or even spring training. So yeah, the thing is, this is going to be one of those calls that took a classic game, if you will, and blew it and flushed it down the toilet. And that is a black mark on MLB postseason history. Not a big one, but a significant one. Because now what's going to happen, and somebody said this on social media, what's going to happen is the best way they're going to have to, I guess, save face now, to save face, is they're going to have to do reviews. They're going to have to now take the check swings, and all those kind of, swings and whatevers, hits near the foul line or right at the edge of the foul line or whatever the case may be. They're going to have to take all these things that might, be, looked at one way, and they're going to have to start putting instant replays or reviews into them now. So that way, if let's say if they had review on it, which again, they say it's unreviewable, but guess what? They may now have to put that in. Let's say if they did have the review option in there, and the manager of the San Francisco Giants said, hey, I want to review this. I don't think that was right. And they did a review, and they see how, and they see that he called, the first base guy confirms, hey, it's a strike, but the review says otherwise. That will basically, and let's say you give the final call to the home, not just to the home plate umpire, but to the people in New York who they check with. If they say, yeah, he didn't swing anything, and they say it's a ball, that shows basically maybe the fact that the guy was too anxious, or the fact that basically he's inexperienced still and he still has a lot to learn. I mean, I get what some of the guys said in the post game, on TBS, because TBS was hosting this game, was broadcasting this game, and I get what they're saying. I get what Pedro Martinez and all of them were saying. All right, sometimes the crowds, they don't just get to the players at times, but they can also get to the umpires. They can get to the umpires, and they can make them just as anxious and nervous as anybody else. So I get that. I understand that and everything. But, that shouldn't be the case. That should not be the case because of the fact that when you think about it, one of the trainings that umpires should have is the same as the players. And that is, do not let the crowds influence your decision. And, what's even worse is people are now going to look at this umpire at first base that made that call that said, yes, he did, and to confirm to home plate and all that yes, he did swing. They're not going to look at a guy like that and they're going to say, I wonder if he was paid under the table. I wonder if he's really a Dodgers fan and all that. And they're going to start speculating and theorizing because of the call last night. And not just Giants fans and all that, but fans overall. Even Dodger fans, believe it or not, have chimed in and said, yeah, we're glad our team won, but we didn't want them to win this way. And you could check that on social media. I mean, again, people are probably happy the Dodgers won, but they're probably looking back at the replay and saying, like, yeah, but, we didn't want them to win this way. We didn't want, the series to end like this. So, so obviously, this is not a good look for MLB. This basically puts an asterisk, closure on basically what was a great series, no doubt about it, thus showcasing why the rivalry is one of the best of all time, if not the best. And, all we could do now is just hope that whoever they assign for the NLCS and the ALCS, starting today and tomorrow, hopefully those umpires, if they're some of the same ones, who knows, but whoever they are, hopefully they learn from this guy's mistakes. Because again, I think what's going to happen in the long run, ladies and gentlemen, is you're going to have, as some people pointed out on social media, and again, it's not just fans that are pointing this out, but it's a lot of people that are now broadcasters and analysis and Hall of Famers. They used to play for the Dodgers. They used to play for the Giants, and they ended their career with other teams. And they retired, or they just retired and played with one team and went to broadcast and stuff like that. Everybody they had an association with the Dodgers or even the Giants in some capacity, chimed in and said that what happened there was wrong, that was the wrong call, and it should be looked at. And like I said, what's going to happen now, potentially, is you're going to get reviews and instant replays put in there for these kind of, swings, for these kind of, pitches and calls. You're going to start getting a lot more of that. And it's all because these umpires that they hire, that they bring in, whether they're young, old, or whatever the case may be, obviously don't have enough training or have not been given enough training to make the right calls. And this guy obviously did not make the right call. So, what are your guys' thoughts? What did you think on the call last night between the Giants and the Dodgers that ended the game? Do you think MLB should really look into how they basically, hire and train their umpires? What are your thoughts? Do you think the Giants have a ace, if you will, just like any other teams that have been through a similar situation to where, hey, we should be the ones moving on, or this game should have continued to, in some capacity? What are your thoughts? Comment down below. Let me know what your thoughts are. Live chat during the premiere. Like the video. Check out my Teespring store. As well as check me out at BW Roses on Patreon. As well as BW Roses on Vimeo. And BW Roses discussions on all your favorite podcast locations. Except for Pandora. But again, let me know what your thoughts are. And I'll talk to y'all later.